Hey guys, welcome back to the Friday vlog where we discuss activity that goes on here with the BuzWeaver channel. That includes things like current events, headlines that are in the news, pop culture, social media, and technology, and just items of interest that come up that allow us to have a little bit of a dialogue. If this is your first time here or you are a returning visitor, I want to welcome you guys back and thank you all for your continued participation here on the channel. In gaming news this week, DICE released their 5.2 Time to Kill patch. Actually, it was a rather large patch that covered a lot of different areas. However, this was very similar to what they did last year with some weapon changes and weapon balances, except this time it affects a majority of the weapons and we can't anticipate any sort of revert here. So the community is none too happy about it. But nonetheless, it was a rather large patch, and we can probably anticipate certain changes being made, perhaps from the community outcry. But nonetheless, when it was released, there was a bit of a bug with it, and I had looked it up and found it, but there was no dedicated video, so I ended up making a video on how to correct the Sparta bug. You can check that out up here in the top right hand corner. I was really amazed to see that it had gone viral. Also in gaming news, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, of course, released its Battle Pass and Season 1 not too long ago. And the community there is a bit tepid as well because we're still anticipating some additional changes to happen to the game. But as I've covered in a video, which I'll also link up here in the top right-hand corner regarding the development team, publishers, and gamers, there are certain expectations that publishers have versus what gamers have versus what developers are able to deliver. And so in that video, I'll go over some of the things that are often missed when it comes to gamers wanting particular things out of their game. But also the developers get stuck in the middle because publishers want to release certain things about their business model that the developers have to meet. But nonetheless, you can check out both of those videos up there in the top right-hand corner. As of this recording on Wednesday, Time released its Person of the Year. This is usually reserved for a rather influential and most talked about person throughout a given year. And this year it was Greta Thunberg, the young Swiss activist who is, of course, a climate change advocate and is out there in the main public square talking about the changes of the climate and the environmental issues that many of her activist groups have been talking about for quite some time. Now, guys, you have to remember here, I would like to believe that even as a conservative, I believe in conservation, and that is a common sense approach to, of course, taking care of our planet. Because for some reason, there seems to be sometimes this mindset that a certain group of people have this sort of air and another group of people have that sort of air or that sort of water. No, we all live on the same planet. We all breathe the same air, at least in most of the countries that abide by a lot of these particular types of regulations, that being the United States and Europe, and in particular her country. These countries are trying to do many things to help the climate and or the environment at the same time. However, I am a little concerned about how she's approaching this and maybe the influences that she has around her, of course, because her being a young girl, I'm sure she probably is aware of some of the climate change discussions that have gone on, throughout time over the many, many years. And of course, she does seem to be one of those people that has that type of ability to communicate, while activist groups could also be trying to influence some of the things that she says and does, because we can already see this, right? Because the main goal in many of these particular types of situations is that you talk about a particular topic that is common among everyone or something that everyone can relate to. And the problem that happens with that is once the platform is given to the person, then we hear all these additional activist type buzzwords and other items that they want to introduce now that they have their platform. And so it's one thing to say, hey, I want to talk about climate change and the concerns about climate and the environment. And then all of a sudden you start talking about patriarchal governments and changes in government and changes that need to be made all across this type of spectrum. And obviously this is where the bias and the political aspects start to come out. A young girl at 16, I mean, she might have some knowledge about the way governments work and function and so forth. But I mean, the idea that she's going to go into, the patriarchal monarchies and other things of that nature really just seems a little bit more injected by people that surround her. But nonetheless, congratulations to Greta Thunberg for getting the Person of the Year at Time Magazine. I will leave additional information about that down in the published section below. This week, also, as of this recording, we may find out exactly what the Democrats are going to do as it concerns impeachment. Now, this is something that we have talked about here kind of gradually over the channel. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how impeachment works in case you guys are new here or you haven't heard about how the process even works, because of course the Democrats aren't explaining it. So in very simple and just terms, the House creates the articles of impeachment, whether it's the Democrats or it's Republicans. In this case, we're going to go with the Democrats, who are generating articles of impeachment. And then they discuss this, as they did with the inquiry, to decide on whether or not they want to move forward with their own, with the impeachment inquiry. So at that point, once they do decide that they want to proceed with it, then they have to have a vote within the House, or what's called the lower house, which makes up our Congress. And so these individuals have to vote on whether or not to proceed with an impeachment. And so they have to get a simple majority of votes to move this forward. And so if, for example, they get enough votes to impeach, it then goes into a trial mode, or goes to now it's going to be generated towards the Senate, which is also a part of Congress. And what's going to happen there is the House is going to act as the prosecutors, and the Republicans or the Senate are going to act as the defense. And the Chief Justice, in this case, John Roberts, will be the arbitrator between the two. And everything at that point will then be a trial, which means that the Republicans can call witnesses that the Democrats cannot stop or cannot block from appearing. They will have to appear. So we would see someone like a Joe Biden, a Hunter Biden, or any of these particular witnesses that were speaking at the hearing. Because what Adam Schiff was doing was he was basically having an in-house meeting that was, the inquiry itself. However, it's usually formulated within the House itself, as opposed to, anyone can bring up articles of impeachment. For example, the Intelligence Committee, like what Schiff has, can issue concerns and say, hey, we need to look into this and perhaps, bring this up to the House, and then bring in people to talk about it. So at this point right now, we are at a point where the Democrats are trying to decide if they actually want to move forward with this. And I'm saying from a political standpoint, this will be suicide for the Democrats, because already impeachment is unpopular. The approval for it is dropping. President Trump's approval overall is going up, as well as in the key states. His approval rating has gone up to 10 points over Biden, who was leading by 10 points. Not to mention, this comes on the heel of the USMCA being passed. This comes on the heel of the job market being high. This also comes on the heels of the stock market being high. This has been a great week for Donald Trump, a tremendous victory for Donald Trump. And this impeachment inquiry is just a black cloud that's hanging over his head. But if the Democrats are willing to go all in with this absurd impeachment, they are going to lose. Because the way it works, once it goes to the Senate, it requires 2/3 of their vote to be able to remove a president. So they could draw up articles of impeachment and they could pass the impeachment, and then you have impeachment next to Donald Trump's name to spite him for his legacy, as it were, as a president who was impeached with the name next to it, kind of like with Bill Clinton, although you don't hear it that often with Bill Clinton. But nonetheless, that's hardly a way to represent your party and have your party go down simply out of spite towards a person you don't like. Because this is ultimately about the fact that these individuals don't like the man. They don't like him. That's hardly a reason to impeach. And when this goes to an actual trial, Chief Justice John Roberts isn't going to sit there and listen to hearsay. He's not going to sit there and listen to anecdotal evidence. It's got to be tangible, reasonable, prospectable. Is perfectable a word? It's got to be tangible evidence. It's got to be right there. It's got to be proven that he did something malicious or treasonous, high crimes and misdemeanors and treason. And they don't have it. They just don't. And the Senate is no way is going to remove a sitting president. So the Democrats are committing political suicide. So we'll have to find out this week whether or not they're actually going to move forward. I'll include some additional content or links down in the published section if you guys want to follow up on what's currently going on with that story. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this Friday vlog. I want to thank all you guys for your continued participation here on the channel. As usual, each and every week, it's great to have you guys along. And of course, now you'll see that obligatory channel icon appearing right there on the screen to subscribe, along with notifications. That way you guys will know when additional content is here on the channel. And I will see you guys right there behind the camera next week.